Hello, everyone. Welcome to Nightly Scroll. Thank you to everyone in the chat who is watching. Rumble.com/Hayley is the only place you can watch Nightly Scroll in full. You might be watching on Facebook right now. You might be watching on my Twitter feed. But if you want to watch the full and get the full Nightly Scroll experience, you have to come over to Rumble. So welcome to everyone and hello to everyone in the chat. I have been chit-chatting with everyone. I got here early today. I've been in the chat for about 15 minutes. It's so nice to chit-chat with everyone. So just some quick news off the top of the show. Donald Trump's helicopter was forced to make an emergency landing with Melania Trump FLOTUS on board. The presidential chopper had a hydraulic issue, and obviously President Trump and Melania Trump were over in the UK. They had a meeting with Keir Starmer. They were supposed to have a joint press conference, and they were behind schedule due to these technical problems with the helicopter. It made an emergency landing at Luton Airport, and they were transferred onto a second support helicopter. Then they boarded Air Force One, and they're on their way back to the White House. So they're all good to go, but just wanted to let everyone know. You know, I love my airport stories, my airplane mishaps. I love those stories. So usually we save those for the end of the show, but one right off the top for you guys. Plus, we're going to get into Jimmy Kimmel getting the boot. The left is in full meltdown mode. It is truly amazing how quickly they have become free speech absolutists and constitutional experts. Then Vice President Harris didn't actually want to run with Tampon Tim. Her first pick was way worse. Then I've got Scott Bryson on deck for his tactical detail segment. We're going to go through those text messages between Kirk's suspected killer and his trans lover. We're going to discuss videos circulating about the crime scene cleanup. Is that typical within a week? And then, of course, Ben Shapiro's vow to never do an outdoor event ever again. So plenty on deck. Put your phones on. Do not disturb. Nightly Scroll starts now. Alrighty, Nexstar has suspended Jimmy Kimmel's show. This is the press release that they put out last night saying Nexstar ABC affiliates to preempt Jimmy Kimmel Live indefinitely beginning tonight. That was last night. And they just explained that Mr. Kimmel's comments about the death of Mr. Kirk, this is an exact quote, are offensive and insensitive at a critical time in our national political discourse. We do not believe they reflect the spectrum of opinions, views, or values of the local communities in which we are located. He went on to say, this is the president of Nexstar, Andrew Alford, saying, continuing to give Mr. Kimmel a broadcast platform in the communities we serve is simply not in the public interest at the current time. And we have made the difficult decision to preempt his show in an effort to let cooler heads prevail as we move toward the resumption of respectful, constructive dialogue. So he's getting the boot there. And this all stemmed, by the way, from conservative influencer podcaster Benny Johnson's interview with FCC Chairman Brendan Carr the other day. Watch this.
You know, when you look at the conduct that has taken place by Jimmy Kimmel, it appears to be some of the sickest conduct possible. As you've indicated, there are, avenues here for the FCC. So there are some ways in which I need to be a little bit careful because we could be called ultimately to be a judge on some of these claims that come up. But I don't think this is an isolated incident. I mean, you go back to Representative Swalwell, and he had a tweet out last week where he was saying that, emphasizing that Charlie Kirk's killer was a straight white male from a Republican family that voted for Donald Trump. In some quarters, there's a very concerted effort to try to lie to the American people about the nature, as you indicate, of one of the most significant, newsworthy public interest acts that we've seen in a long time. And what appears to be an action by Jimmy Kimmel to play into that narrative that this was somehow a MAGA or Republican motivated person. If that's what happened here with his conduct, that is really, really sick. And I've been very clear from the moment that I have become chairman of the FCC, I want to reinvigorate the public interest. And what people don't understand is that the broadcasters, and you've gotten this right, are entirely different than people that use other forms of communication. They have a license granted by us at the FCC, and that comes with it an obligation to operate in the public interest.
The public interest. And that's exactly what Nexstar said in that statement there. Also, Sinclair Broadcasting put out this statement. Sinclair operates 178 TV stations in 81 markets, and they said this: due to problematic comments regarding the murder of Charlie Kirk in programming provided to broadcast stations by ABC, Sinclair and its partners, which operate ABC stations in 30 markets in the U.S., will stop airing Jimmy Kimmel's show until further notice. So this was a larger decision here. And they are going to air a special in remembrance of Charlie Kirk during Kimmel's Friday time slot. So tomorrow night, when Jimmy Kimmel Live was supposed to be live, they are going to air a remembrance piece for Kirk, which I think Jimmy Kimmel's probably seething about.
Well, I didn't know that. Is this? That's,
oh, yeah.
Wow.
So we have that to look forward to. And, they're not going to allow Kimmel's show to return to the air until this. They said, quote, until formal discussions are held with ABC regarding the network's commitment to professionalism and accountability. Sinclair also called on Jimmy to make a meaningful and personal donation to Kirk's family and Turning Point USA, which I do not think that he should be required to do in order to get his show back. But I do agree that it would be the nice thing and the right thing to do, considering he was lying about the assassination on his platform. But I don't think that that should be the contingency plan. You shouldn't have to force people to donate to something. But President Trump was clearly in good spirits last night when this news broke. This is what he posted on Truth Social. Great news for America. The ratings challenged Jimmy Kimmel's show is canceled. Congratulations to ABC for finally having the courage to do what needed to be done. Kimmel has zero talent and worse ratings than even Colbert, if that's possible. That leaves Jimmy and Seth, two total losers on fake news NBC. Their ratings are also horrible. Do it, NBC, President DJT. Another good DJT sign off there. So President Trump is really trying to take an axe to every single late night show possible. He wants them all gone.
That should tell us how he really feels, huh?
Yeah, he wants them all gone. And I just know that Jimmy Kimmel is inconsolable. He is seething. He is so mad. And I wish that I could witness the crash out. I wish that I could just be a fly on the wall in the Kimmel household and in all these conversations and phone calls he's surely having with agents and top executives at ABC. I read a report, this was according to sources to the Daily Mail, so take that with a grain of salt, but Kimmel may be looking for a way out of his ABC contract, which is interesting because you would think that you would want your show back, but it seems like Kimmel is so taken aback by this decision and so upset about it that he doesn't want to work at ABC anymore, really in any capacity, which is interesting. If those sources are correct, I don't know. But I guess we'll wait and see. All of this could have been avoided, by the way, by telling jokes. If Jimmy Kimmel just told jokes, good, funny jokes, even political ones, instead of auditioning for Rachel Maddow's position on MSNBC every night, he would be in a much different position. Although I think in general, people are kind of like sick of politics and comedy. I think it could be funny at times. But I think if Jimmy went back to his cultural roots and just told good jokes, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. I remember, was it always called Jimmy Kimmel Live? Yeah.
As far as I know, we can check on that real quick, but I believe it was.
I remember watching Jimmy Kimmel, maybe not the TV show, like maybe I wouldn't tune into the full show, but I remember seeing clips on social media when I was in high school and college. It was funny. Like, this guy used to be funny. I'm not saying that he shouldn't have had this platform. Clearly, he used to be funny, and now he's such a different version of himself. It's not even like he's the same person. The comedy style is totally different. He used to make, honestly, even when he used to cover politics, it used to be funny. Now it is coming from such a hateful, divisive place. It's no longer funny. Remember he would do the kids stealing the parents stealing the kids' Halloween candy.
His comedy
certain
goes all the way
skits.
back to the Man Show.
course.
Even I mean, he used to legitimately be a fun. And you know what? They all were funny in their own way. Craig Ferguson had his thing. Conan had his thing. But the minute that you get political, you cut 125 million viewers off.
Totally. And if you want to be a comedian, your jokes are protected under the First Amendment. You can even stretch the truth, and it's protected under the First Amendment. But if you want to be a pretend news anchor, well, you have to tell the truth and face the consequences when you don't. If Jimmy Kimmel was strictly a YouTube show or even a Rumble show, he would be able to lie, by the way. But you can't lie about the details and motivation of a political assassination when you're on broadcast television. You are held to a different and higher standard. And everyone on the left saying, oh my gosh, a comedian is being canceled. No. A failed wannabe news opinion host got a slap on the wrist for lying. I say slap on the wrist because I'm not so sure that Jimmy is gone for good. His show was pulled off the air indefinitely. That means they can bring him back at some point if they want. And like Sinclair was saying, we need to make sure that if ABC handles this the right way, then sure, we'll talk about bringing his show back, but not until then. So again, if ABC makes him apologize or something, he could be back, right? Remember when The View took a hiatus and now they're back? I mean, everyone was like, woo, The View's gone and The View's back, right? So ABC is probably, in my opinion, going to weigh the public perception and then see what happens. You know, everyone who was so up in arms over Stephen Colbert's firing doesn't seem to care too much about him anymore because we all have the attention spans of goldfish. Like that was like 3 weeks ago news. And that was, you know, the biggest news of the day. And now no one really was talking about Stephen Colbert anymore. So maybe they'll see that people are, you know, crying over Jimmy Kimmel and they'll bring him back. Or maybe they'll realize that after a while, nobody will care or miss his show. And if ABC gave Jimmy the opportunity to apologize on air and he did so, I would take it. I would take it. He could keep his shitty show. And if people decide not to watch even more than they already are, then fine. And, you know, if he does whatever ABC News sets out in front of him, make this apology or say this, and he does it, and Sinclair brings him back, then that's fine by me. Many in the mainstream media are saying, though, that this is fascist. When did these people not have bosses? Did they not sign contracts? Like, you have to do certain things. If I sat in this chair and I started dropping, like, you know, crazy slurs and I started saying, you know, like absurd things, I would be fired too. Like, we're all held to a certain standard. Our bosses want certain things from us. There are certain TV stations, by the way, that you're not allowed to like dye your hair or cut your hair without permission. Like, that is just, everyone signs a different contract. I have no idea what Jimmy Kimmel's contract looks like, but all these people in the mainstream media saying like this is fascist as if they don't have to follow certain guidelines and rules.
You know what his contract probably does imply, though? You shouldn't be down 51% since 2002 or since 2022.
That too.
51%. So my friend, he's got a hole to dig himself out of that. I mean, he could give everybody in MAGA and whoever on the right $100 bill, and I'm not sure he's going to get 51% back.
Yeah, but we weren't watching him anyway. You know, like we haven't watched Jimmy Kimmel. I haven't watched his show in 10 years plus. I watch clips on Twitter and I make fun of him, but I really haven't watched the show in full in a very long time. And I think a lot of people on our side of the aisle feel the same way. He made his choice to go hard left, and he lost a lot of viewers, and he has been doubling down on that narrative. I read another report today that he was totally going to double down on I hate MAGA stuff. So clearly he has made that bed. Now he has to lie in it. But many people in the media are saying that this is, you know, we have state-controlled media because they claim that the Trump administration bullied ABC into making this decision, which they didn't do. I mean, ABC had every right to not do what they did.
And 100%. I mean, it's not even. This isn't even really in my view. This isn't even really a free speech thing. I mean, we don't like the speech. ABC doesn't like the speech because it's divisive. But again, he's in hot water. 100%. He was in. Wrong is definite. Divisive, at least. He's down 51%. Money is green, and these networks are tired of it. So if you don't care that you're on thin water, go over to CNN, sign you an $8 million a year contract, and go up against Gutfeld at 10 o'clock with all that. Bye. You know what I mean?
No, seriously. I'm going to get into some of the best and funniest reactions from the media and politicians as well in just a minute. But first, I'm going to tell you about Genucel. You've heard me tell you about the transformative results that people have had using Genucel. I've told you the story about Sandra in Virginia. She was using Genucel for just 5 days. Her husband noticed a difference, saying, "What are you doing? What are you doing differently? What are you using?" Her wrinkles were gone. Her sensitive skin was feeling good. She had tried all these expensive products and found that Genucel really worked for her. So now it is your turn to see results like Sandra using Genucel's end of season summer sale. There's only a few days left to get Genucel's complete skincare package at 70% off. It includes their dark spot corrector, that's what I use, plus the classic Genucel bags and puffiness treatment for immediate results and effects in just minutes. Get the best skincare in the world for yourself, completely risk-free. Go to Genucel.com/scroll today and start looking years, even decades younger tomorrow. All orders are upgraded to free shipping. See results day one, or you will get your money back. Go to Genucel.com/scroll, Genucel.com/scroll. All right, so let's get into some of these media comments. First and foremost, I just have to say how funny this is. So Brian Stelter had reached out to the FCC for comment, and this is the response that he got. Very funny. He wrote this on X. "I asked FCC Chair Brendan Carr if he had any new comment now that ABC has pulled Jimmy Kimmel's show, and he sent me this GIF. And it is Dwight and Michael from The Office just raising the roof. So that was his official comment, which I think is very funny. But also Brian Stelter went on, was he on his former network? Because he was on CNN for a while until he got canned. But he said that America is a less free place now that Jimmy Kimmel has been canned. Watch this.
Even though we're talking about comedy, this is so serious, Aaron. Yeah. America is a less free place if late night comedians cannot do and say what they want. Of course, they can be tuned out. People can change the channel. That's how we vote. That's how we have our say in America. But this really does have a chilling effect across the American media. And it's not just me saying it. We've heard from the group FIRE in the past few minutes, the free speech group FIRE, saying, quote, "The government pressured ABC and ABC caved. Quote, we cannot be a country where late night talk show hosts serve at the pleasure of the president. But until institutions grow a backbone and learn to resist government pressure, that is the country we are."
Someone in the chat said that Stelter needs to go to the tanning bed because he was pasty. I actually thought he looked very orange there.
Me and Guy were just sitting there talking about how he looks cooked.
Yeah,
it looked like he went to the tanning bed and, watched an episode of Sex in the City or something and got cooked.
Yeah, they were probably being sarcastic now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, he looked very orange. I don't know. The makeup artist was getting inspiration from maybe the president of the United States. I'm not sure. But Chris Hayes, MSNBC. Is he still on MSNBC? I don't even know if these people still have shows anymore. Maybe they do. Chris Hayes, I know he used to be on one of these networks. Doesn't really matter. But this is what he said on X. "The countries where comedians can't mock the leader on late night TV are not really ones you want to live in. And I want to make this distinction loud and clear for anyone. Jimmy Kimmel was not canned for mocking Trump. He was fired for lying. That is the problem. But because the leftists have run with this narrative, they're using their favorite fascist buzzword. And this plays into that, right? So ABC News themselves had done a poll, and they found that 87% of Democrats think that Trump is a fascist. They already thought this. They already thought that Trump was fascist. Everything that Trump does is fascist. Everything is fascism. It's losing meaning at this point. Excuse me, everyone. I think the word is losing meaning, don't you? They keep saying fascist, everything's fascist. It's like, this is when they call everyone Nazis. It's like, now this is losing meaning. Now we're getting further and further away from Nazi Germany and the Holocaust. Now you are using this word, you're throwing it around like it's nothing.
And it just shows that those people are stupid because they don't have an understanding of like how horrible that history was.
No, totally. I don't know what is in my throat, but it just came out of nowhere.
Go ahead, I'll start playing some elevator music.
Andy, take over.
You know
for
what
me.
I'm saying? Well, Kimmel sucks, guys. This is producer Andy while Hayley's choking on her 3-liter water. Kimmel sucks. Stelter sucks. He looks like he fell asleep in the tent in bed. Watched Lord of the Rings. All 3 of them. Hayley's back.
Thank you, Andy. That was wonderful. I'm going to lose my job soon. But yeah, this is all very rich, obviously, coming from the party. That's, they said absolutely nothing when the Biden regime launched a misinformation board to silence news stories that they didn't agree with and to silence conservatives. These people were totally silent when the Hunter Biden laptop story was completely buried by big tech, because big tech then and the Biden administration were just in bed with one another. So they were able to influence that 2020 presidential election in their favor. Then Biden bullied Facebook into censoring conservatives during COVID. We watched doctors lose their licenses for going against Biden. The left has done us completely dirty. And now we're playing dirty right back, finally. And it's hilarious to watch the left squirm at how uncomfortable it makes them to look in the mirror and be held accountable for their own actions for once. This is how they acted towards us for years. They are tasting their own medicine and they don't like it. And they're blaming the wrong guy, by the way, too. Of course, they say that it's Trump's fault, but Trump did not cancel Jimmy Kimmel's show, nor did he make, or the FCC make, ABC do anything. It was also pulled indefinitely, so he might be back. But ABC was doing math. They were doing a math equation in their head in real time. And they were probably doing that math considering the last time that they got into a scuffle with President Trump, they had to shell over $15 million. Remember when George Stephanopoulos lied, they had to end up paying $15 million to Trump's library. They certainly have enough money to pay another $15 million if they wanted to keep Kimmel and get into a lawsuit with Trump. But they decided to can him indefinitely. You lie, you pay the price. And keeping a failed comedian's show on the air was not worth the price of another Trump lawsuit or FCC violation. So people keep comparing this, by the way, to Fox News and Brian Kilmeade. Brian Kilmeade said some crazy stuff the other day about homeless people and how they should basically just be killed by lethal injection, which was one of the crazy, it's an absolute absurd thing to say. I don't know what would compel him to say something like that, but Fox News chose to keep him. He made an apology on air and explained why he said that. He didn't mean it, etc. Okay, so that is the decision that Fox News made. ABC could have done the same thing and dealt with the ramifications, fines, maybe imprisonment, shutdown of services. These are all potential violations when you go against the FCC. Jimmy Kimmel's failing show was not worth it to them. So the left is mad at Trump for allegedly forcing the hand of the FCC against ABC, but they're mad at ABC also for capitulating to Trump. So really, they are just mad at everything and everyone. Nothing new is here. They're a very angry group of people, obviously. And chief among them, Congressman Eric Swalwell, he says that this should shake every American. Watch.
Congressman, I see you are wearing a hat. What does that hat say?
You're damn right I am, John. I was a guest on the Jimmy Kimmel show.
Loser.
He every night has a right to come into any house that wants to watch and entertain Americans, just as Greg Gutfeld on Fox has a right to be not funny and go on his network and entertain Americans. It's a part of who we are, John, and frankly, it should shake every American that the President of the United States is out there firing comedians who make fun of him. That is not who we are, and every American should care and stand up to this.
Every American should care. Every American should care. that Jimmy Kimmel's not on the air anymore? They don't even have enough Americans to watch the show.
That's what I was getting ready to say. Eric's so stupid. He's getting canceled because he's not doing good.
Yeah, people don't care. That's the point. That's why this was an easy goodbye this was a clean cut for ABC, because people don't care about Jimmy Kimmel. And, this was the same narrative that we were saying, right? Like, every American should be shaken after Charlie Kirk was assassinated in broad daylight in cold blood because it was an attack on the First Amendment. You can't conflate the two. You can't compare, the gravity of Charlie Kirk's murder to Jimmy Kimmel's firing. They're not the same. Americans are not shaken by Kimmel getting canned in the same way that Americans were shaken by watching a man get shot in the neck. And the left scoffed when conservatives said that Charlie Kirk's assassination felt like a target on the backs of all conservatives and their viewpoints, whether they're in the limelight or not, right? If they're in the public eye or not. I mean, regular conservative Republican voters were even feeling like there was a target on their backs, because if Charlie Kirk's viewpoints were enough to kill him and you have the same viewpoints, well, doesn't that mean that we're also a target? Lots of people were saying that, but Jimmy Kimmel's indefinite suspension should only serve as a warning to other comedians to actually be funny, and in doing so, don't lie about political assassinations and the motives and the demons behind them. Now, Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut, he was saying that he was upping the ante. He was saying that people should mobilize because of this. So listen to this.
Stephen Colbert is gone. Jimmy Kimmel is gone. Now, you need to see what is happening right now. It is the systematic destruction of free speech in this country. It is Donald Trump using the power of the White House, in this case, the power of his regulatory agencies, to try to shut down any speech that opposes him. Understands the gravity of this moment. This is a moment for the country to mobilize. This is a moment for all of us to be out in the streets protesting, because if you don't raise your voices right now about the assault on free speech, about Donald Trump's decision to disgustingly exploit the murder of Charlie Kirk so as to try to permanently render powerless and impotent those who politically oppose him, there may be no democracy to save a year from now. This is a red alert moment, man. It feels like the red alert has been on since January, but the days are getting darker, which means the obligation on us to stand up and mobilize is getting more urgent.
So he used the word mobilize many times there. And also Gavin Newsom posted this on X saying that, he's likening President Trump to a dictator, a king. He said there is no such thing as free speech under Donald Trump's reign. This is less than a week, by the way, after all of their empty calls for unity, taking down the temperature. Now they're mobilizing. Everyone should mobilize. They should get out in the streets and protest against a dictatorial king. So much for that, right? Now, I wanted to point out two horrible takes from Midas Touch. Midas Touch, I don't even know what their purpose is. They just call out people in the media. I think they raise a lot of money to take people off the air, I think. But they said it's past time to acknowledge that the United States can no longer be viewed as a democracy.
I have to call it. ABC executives, please put out a tweet and say that the show is doing crappy and that's why he was canceled. It's not any kind of stake against democracy.
Yeah, but this is the left. This is all that they say, fascist and democracy, threats to democracy. This is all they do, is just blame everything on this stuff. And if our nation's democracy hinges on a failed comedian's employment, the nation was doomed to begin with. Also, it's a good thing that we're a constitutional republic, and this was just a failed comedian being fired for lying. But they don't know these things. Also, Midas Touch said that comedy is illegal now. You could show this post that they put on X. Someone in the chat said Midas Touch gets a lot of funding from the left, probably Act Blue. Yeah, so Midas Touch posted, well, it looks like comedy is illegal. I mean, these are just the most brain dead takes This would only make sense, by the way, if Jimmy Kimmel was like arrested for what he said. If it's illegal, wouldn't there be like legal ramifications?
Who do you
A
think?
fine or something? I mean,
If you had to guess, the executives.
He was suspended.
Yes, I know. The executives at ABC and all these people that actually pulled the trigger and made this decision, what political party do you think they're aligned with? I mean, if you had to guess.
The left?
So the left is keeping democracy. I mean, this is so stupid. Just put out. I mean, he was let go because his show's not doing good, and this is the first chance that they had to legitimately say that he crossed the line legitimately, and he did. And this overreaction is just. I mean, I'm glad you're laughing. It's Gee's in here cracking up. Like it's stupidly funny.
Also, like, Jimmy Kimmel, like, what does he have to do with our nation's democracy? Like, it's not like we vote these people in to be talk show hosts. Like, we have nothing to do with it. It's an ABC's decision. ABC's the company, and they decide what to do with him. Like, what do you mean? Whatever. Also, did Midas Touch say anything when a comedian, Irish comedian Graham Lyman, was actually arrested for speech in the UK? I know that our constitution doesn't apply to that situation, but certainly, like, if they cared about speech that much, they would have called that out. But it's very one-sided for them, obviously. Also, if you want to see how disgusting the left is, look no further than Keith Olbermann. What network was Keith Olbermann on?
Well, originally he was an ESPN guy, and he was awesome. And
then he went down this weird
wasn't he MSNBC?
Political rabbit hole. But he posted this on X last night. Burn in hell, Sinclair, alongside Charlie Kirk. Wow. There's really no words for how disgusting that is, especially after seeing the reaction to someone being assassinated in broad daylight for what they believe in. Anyone in the public eye, I mean, anyone in general should not, they should be disgusted by that. But anyone in the public eye who's, speaks for a living should be alarmed by that. And to say burn in hell, I mean, it's just like, it's gross. The left invented cancel culture, and now when it's, used against them, they hate it, of course. But now they're back to cancel culture because they are urging boycotts against ABC and Disney. I saw someone post this on X last night. Every major talent that works for ABC and Disney should refuse to show up for work until Jimmy Kimmel is reinstated. Marvel Movies needs to shut down. Ditto the sitcoms collective boycott. I saw Ben Shapiro wrote something like in response to this, something along the lines of don't threaten us with a good time or don't tempt us with a good time. I mean, if if Disney, ABC, all these talent just like didn't show up to work, we'd be like, wow, this is what it feels like to be the mainstream media. It's like only people on the right working. Yeah. And people were saying now, and people in the chat were saying this too, that we should cancel The View next. I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, people should be held accountable for when they say things incorrectly. They should take accountability for that. But like, what does it matter if The View's on air or not? I mean, I don't watch it. Everyone who hates The View doesn't watch it. So who cares? If there's an audience for it, which certainly it seems like there is, then who cares? Like they can spew whatever stupid shit they want to spew. It's not my problem. And if they get canceled, who am I going to make fun of? Whose clips am I going to laugh at and react to? So Joy Behar is back, and she said that she wouldn't want to be saved if a Republican was coming to save her. Listen to this.
I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't even let him give me a Heimlich maneuver.
Yeah.
That's how little I feel about people. I don't know.
Well, and a MAGA supporter is like
calling you right now.
I got it.
Somebody's.
I fixed it.
Tell that MAGA man, leave you alone.
I'm not sleeping with you anymore.
Isn't it odd? She said I wouldn't even let a Republican give her the Heimlich maneuver.
I don't know that a Republican want to get behind her.
I would agree with that. But to save someone's life, I think that Republicans would put politics aside and save someone's life if they were choking. But she wouldn't want it.
They would. I'm being facetious. They would, yes.
She wouldn't want it. Did you hear that? Well, Kamala Harris is back. She's going to make the rounds on the media. She's going to do interviews with The View. She's going to do interviews with Rachel Maddow next week. I think she's going to be on MSNBC on Monday night, I believe. She's promoting this new book, 107 Days, about her failed campaign. And she revealed in her book that Tampon Tim was not her first choice for her running mate. She wanted Mayor Pete as her running mate. I want to pull up her exact comments here because I didn't look. I mean, I looked them up, but I don't know exactly what she said. But it wasn't her first choice. This is what she said. Buttigieg would have been an ideal partner if I were a straight white man. But we were already asking a lot of America. To accept a woman married to a Jewish man, part of me wanted to say, screw it, let's just do it. But knowing what was at stake, it was too big of a risk. It was a risk because no one liked you. It was a risk because you were never going to win in the first place. Like, didn't matter who she was running with. She stinks. Anyway, quick turning now to Turning Point News, because I have Scott Bryson on deck for the tactical details segment. We're going to go through some of the new details that we've learned since last week. But Turning Point named Erica Kirk as the new CEO. The Turning Point board has unanimously elected Erica Kirk as the new CEO and chair of the board. In prior discussions, Charlie expressed to multiple executives that this is what he wanted in the event of his death. I mean, I understand that you have to have these conversations if you're in charge of a company, but isn't it so sad that he was having these conversations? Like, he's 31 years old and he was like, if in the event that I die, I want Erica to take over. I mean, it's almost eerie that he was having these conversations so young. But Ben Shapiro, on the topic of Turning Point and the future of Turning Point, people were saying, oh my gosh, Ben Shapiro is going to pick up the microphone and all that stuff. And there's no replacement for Charlie Kirk. But Ben Shapiro, Megyn Kelly, and others have vowed to keep doing campus tours. And Ben Shapiro said on Barry Weiss's podcast that he's going to continue doing college tours, but he will never do an outdoor appearance. Listen to this.
There's an attempt right now to basically say, if you shut up, you will be safe. And if you speak out politically, there's a good shot that some unhinged actor is going to take that as a threat and then come and try and kill you. There will be, I've told my security team, I will never again do an outdoor event. It's not possible because there's too many vantage points. There's too many overlooks. If we'll do indoor events, those indoor events, I'm going to try and mandate as far as possible metal detectors, because it's not like a normal circumstance, going to the grocery store in Florida where a bunch of people are armed. This is like an actual political event. We now know that people are legitimately targeting folks for death at these events. We're going to have to contain the environment an awful lot more. And a lot of the sort of viral nature of the debates, I don't know how it's going to be possible, frankly, to ever again, at least for the foreseeable future, do the kind of thing that Charlie did, where it was like, okay, you get up 3 feet from me, and now we have an open debate in an open air setting. I just don't think from a safety and security point of view, that's even remotely possible anymore. That's not going to stop me from, there are rumors going around that I'm not going to do campus anymore, which is absolute nonsense. I'm planning on a wide variety of campuses, and I'm sure that I'm not the only one this year, because if what Charlie died for means anything, it means that we have to keep actually going into these spaces and having these debates. But it's going to change the nature of security, just the same as, when it came to airports, 9/11 changed the nature of security.
Interesting, right? So I have former Secret Service agent and host of Beyond the Service podcast and Silverlock contributor Scott Bryson here for the Tactical Detail segment. Scott, thank you so much for being here. And I wanted you to react to what Ben said there, because he says that it's really not possible for the foreseeable future for anyone to do outdoor events safely. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, well, it sort of pains me to agree with him, not because I disagree with Ben on his ideology most of the time, but he's not wrong in the fact that an indoor venue is much safer. You can control it a lot easier with magnetometers and doors and windows and walls. The event that took place last week with Charlie was just a bad setup, and I'm not here to besmirch the security detail or the police, and we'll get into the weeds on that, I'm sure. But that venue was just sort of it was a lose-lose situation from the beginning, based on line of sight, the 360 coverage problems, the lack of cover and concealment, and all these things. And I think unfortunately, I think he's right. We have to take security very seriously, and I don't think that these people didn't. But I think we're living in a new world, and it's just very unfortunate.
Yeah, and some people in the chat here were saying, well, is it possible to do outdoor events just behind bulletproof glass? But you would have to be in a bulletproof hamster wheel. Like there's no, with drones and from people being on roofs and all these things, like how would you even safely be behind bulletproof glass? You wouldn't be protected from all angles.
Yeah, it's a little interesting too, because these people like Charlie and Ben and different people, they're private citizens. They're public servants in their own way, but they're not duly elected, so they don't have a security detail
Right.
such as the Secret Service or the government, like the governors have troopers and things like that. So unfortunately, it's manpower based and it's money driven. And unfortunately, a lot of times the people who are controlling the purse strings, and I'm not saying this was the case with Turning Point at all, but a lot of times the first thing that's cut in the budget is security. I think that's changing very swiftly. We saw it last December with the CEO up in New York who was executed for basically doing nothing. So unfortunately, if there's a will, there's a way. You have to have countermeasures in place for sure. We can talk about that in a minute. I'm sure we will. But it comes down to manpower and it comes down to money. And we have to start thinking outside of the box a little bit with some of this stuff. Plainclothes detectives, undercover guys, right? Women, female agents, officers are amazing. There are young ladies out there your age and in their 20s and 30s they don't look like cops, but they are, and they blend in very well. That's a tremendous asset, right? Drones, you talked about a second ago. Drones would be amazing. You have to have a guy in a different vantage point, like on a roof. Now, the problem is this is a little nuanced because it's a private citizen with his own private security detail. So I'm assuming that they ran it very similar to the way we would do things for the president, obviously scaled way down. You're going to send an advance agent out. But the cops, here's what your audience needs to remember, and I'm sure they are well aware of this, but just to reiterate, the police that are working in that city that day are working their regular beat, because if someone needs 911, they have to be able to respond to the general public. So the officers that are working these venues, by and large, are off-duty officers, and they're making $40 to $50 an hour, maybe more in some places. But then you say, okay, well, $50 an hour times 4 hours, that's $200 times 10. It adds up very quick, because you think, well, $2,000 today is not that much, but $2,000 a day, every day adds up very quickly. And a lot of times it's just not in the budget. And not only is it maybe not in the budget, but when you go to the police and they're like, hey, I need 10 guys. And maybe the guy running the protective operations for the police department says, man, I can give you 5. And well, I really need 10 or 12 or 20. Well, you're going to get what you get. And then you have to be very strategic with where you place them.
In a perfect world, if you were tasked with, putting together a security plan for an event like this, let's say it is a high profile conservative figure, they're speaking, let's say it's Ben Shapiro, and you were tasked with making sure this is an outdoor event, Ben Shapiro is going to be safe. How do you do it? How much money would that cost? Do you have to have agents on every roof, or do you just have to sweep the roof before? I mean, after this past assassination of Charlie Kirk and the attempt on President Trump's life in Butler, to Ben Shapiro's point, there's no way to do this safely. I think you would need to have an agent, like you were saying, multiple agents in the crowd blending in, but also on every single rooftop. Like there's no way to do this otherwise, right?
Well, yeah, and I don't want to start talking about tradecraft as far as the Secret Service goes, but let's just talk in general layman's terms. So Charlie's detail, he had a detail, right? He has a security detail, and that's what you call the inner perimeter. Then you have a middle perimeter, and you need an outer perimeter. So you need 3 concentric layers, and it's 360. When I say 360, don't think in terms of a circle, think in terms of a sphere. You have to think above and below and around and all the things. So it starts inside and sort of works its way out. And I think he had a pretty good plan. They had a pretty good plan for up close, like maybe someone jumping the bike rack, trying to physically attack him. things like that. And they probably had some police scattered around in the middle perimeter, but I don't think they had anybody on the outer perimeter. And that's what we have to do. I don't think you need a body on every rooftop, but you definitely need to have somebody up there. Okay. It depends on your vantage point because line of sight is the biggest threat. We talked about this last week. Distance is a problem too. Distance can be your friend, but can also be it can be your foe as long as there's a direct line of sight. So all you have to do, I don't mean to sound contrite, but all you have to do is put a person up on the roof with a radio, and as long as that person can see 360 degrees, you're good. What you also need to do is you need to commandeer prior to the during your advance work, you need to say, okay, here's our EA plan, here's our comms plan. I need a police radio because it does me no good if a cop sees something on a post on a roof and he radios down to the sergeant, but I don't hear that.
Right.
For example, maybe they had a guy on the roof and like, oh, I see a guy laying prone on a building over there. That is the red flag if there ever was a red flag.
Yes.
Now, at this point, he hasn't done anything wrong, but common sense tells you that's not good. So they radio down and they say, hey, we have an issue. And then very discreetly, but, not panicky, but very discreetly, but in a in a way with some speed, we get Charlie off the stage and we try to rectify the situation.
Right.
Just like July 13th with Trump, that rooftop was left unattended, unmanned, and that's absolutely unacceptable for the Secret Service, which we're not talking about tonight. That's a little bit different, ball game because that is a Secret Service protectee with lots and lots of assets, although they didn't have some things they should have had. But for a private citizen, as long as you're willing to pay for that and the police have the manpower and are able to help you, this can be attained. Now, I'm not going to say easily, but it's attainable.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, when you think about Butler, it pisses me off because they had the guy on the roof. There were civilians on the ground looking up and seeing it. So it's like if the civilians on the ground were seeing it, certainly trained Secret Service agents were also seeing him, no? Then, they took him out after he shot the president, right? So it's, to your point, what they should have done is radio down and get President Trump off the stage, or at least cover him and figure something else out. But then in that situation, let's say it's President Trump or it's Charlie Kirk or it's someone else, you get the main attraction, whoever it is, off the stage. But then what does the surrounding area do? Because if this is someone who just has a gun in their hand and they just want to do harm, maybe if they got President Trump off the stage and he thought, well, darn it, my target's gone, I guess I'll just kill someone else. Like, what do you do if you're in the crowd and there is a situation where security guards and police officers are on the ground saying, like, what do you say to the audience, and what does the audience do?
Yeah, that's a good question. Unfortunately, it's not cookie cutter. What I was thinking about this earlier today, I was thinking in terms of, okay, let's say, for example, that there was a police officer on a building adjacent to where this shooter was laying, right? And he saw it. He could very quickly but discreetly call down to the detail leader, and the detail leader could say, hey, Charlie, we got to get off the stage. And they take him back to the hard room, a green room, the limo, whatever. Okay. And then until something really bad is happening, you could say, sorry, folks, we'll be right back with you. We had a technical difficulty. The crowd, you don't want to create pandemonium, right? But you also don't want to leave people on the X either. So it depends. Once the situation starts to really go south, then you're going to need to make a public announcement, and then you're going to try to do your best to herd the people out, because people are going to stampede, rightfully so, because they're going to be scared to death. So you don't want to ensue panic. So there's no real cookie cutter answer for this or that. But once you identify the threat, hopefully it gets taken out. Like in Butler, Pennsylvania, if the Secret Service would have had plainclothes people working that day, I think this thing would have been completely alleviated. I know we're not talking about Butler tonight, we're talking about Charlie. But the problem is it kind of bleeds over into this because Charlie, bless his heart, he didn't have those assets either. So the Secret Service should have had them and didn't. Okay, so that's a failure. But Charlie's probably not going to have a counter sniper team because the police probably aren't going to say, well, man, I can't really justify giving you a sniper. I like your content, but you're not the governor. You're not a congressman. So it's just very gray. And I know it's not a super good answer because a lot of things in life are black and white, and some of this stuff is very gray. But I do want to say this, and the Secret Service gets this wrong sometimes too, and I'll probably catch flack for saying this, but it is what it is. Your 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 protection model shouldn't be based on title. It should be based on threat level. And what I mean by that is this. Kamala Harris had way more assets in Pennsylvania the same day that Trump was there, but the threat level on Trump was way higher. But because she was a sitting VP, she had assets he didn't have.
Right.
I think that's wrong. And the reason I bring that up is because Charlie Kirk's not, you know, a governor or senator or whatever, but there's a high threat level because people love Charlie or they didn't like Charlie. No one's neutral on Charlie. So there's a threat level there, and that has to be evaluated.
Totally. That makes complete sense. And I don't know if, well, yeah, I mean, it's not like Charlie's going to ever have Secret Service protection or people like Charlie. But that is interesting to note. You know, there have been videos going viral this week about UVU and how they're back in classes now. And there were videos of people power washing the scene and just kind of like cleaning up and stuff. But is this normal? Because to my knowledge, and I don't know what the feds know, like I don't know what they've found or what they haven't found. But to my knowledge, they haven't found a bullet. They haven't found anything like that. So is this normal to clean up a crime scene, get kids back to school? Like, are there still going to be investigators on the scene, even though there are kids there?
Yeah, I think the FBI, I need to give credit where credit's due. The FBI is the best in the business when it comes to crime scene analysis and forensics. They just are hands down. They're a tremendous asset to the local authorities. The ATF was also involved because of the rifle, right?
Right.
The guy, it was a bolt action rifle, so he did not eject the cartridge, which was the spent casing, right? So the casing wasn't there, but we have it already. So the FBI would have never allowed that crime scene to be power washed or anything until it was completely and thoroughly gone through. So I have every confidence that that was done professionally and thoroughly. As we know, our good friend is the number 2 guy over there. So there's no chance that wasn't done right. So I wouldn't worry about that. In terms of the bullet, the projectile, you know, I want to know as much about this as you do. But guess what? Sometimes we don't need to know. As a general public, we just don't need to know things. So I'm hoping that the medical examiner, I don't know if an autopsy was performed or not, because I know sometimes, you know, people don't want autopsies done because of the way the body is treated.
Right.
But the entry and exit wound is very important, and that will tell a lot of information as far as the trajectory of the bullet and all these things. So I'm hoping that the bullet, whether the bullet was found or not, to me is not as important as knowing where the entry and exit wounds are, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And yeah, I mean, to your point, we might never know, but as long as the people who need to know, then I'm good with it. I will, you know, trust until they give me a reason to not trust. So I agree with you. I think if cleaning up in a week and power washing in a week and kids back to school in a week, I trust that everything that was done was done correctly. I want to talk to you about the text messages that were released earlier this week between the suspected killer and his lover, the trans lover. And a few of the text messages, people are saying that they are, you know, ingenuine or not consistent with how Gen Z talks. What did you make of these text messages? Did you think that it was authentic? Did it read kind of like a Chat GPT? Or do you think they purposely scripted it to kind of absolve the boyfriend? Or is it just two weirdos who are weird?
Yeah, it's funny because I've been watching Vince this week, obviously, and getting my news from different sources. The text messages that I have seen seem to me, my knee-jerk reaction is probably genuine. I don't know if that's right. The boyfriend, believe it or not, seems to be a little bit more sane than this guy. They're both obviously off their rocker. If
Right.
one guy's he's a woman and whatever. I know people are gay or whatever, but being gay is one thing, but thinking you're a woman's totally different, right? But
Yes.
so I think they both have mental health concerns. But it sounded to me like the boyfriend was probably a little bit more sane. And I feel like, to me, my knee-jerk reaction was it was probably legit. Now, here's the thing: if they're playing 4D chess, they fooled me, because these kids are smart. People are smart. Just because you're bad and crazy doesn't mean you're stupid. So they could have this could have all been a ploy. I think once the investigation runs itself out, we'll know more. And I have every confidence in the world with this administration. Can you imagine how jacked up this would be going if Biden or Harris had an FBI? I mean, it would be a clown show.
Right. Totally. We're so very lucky that we have Trump in office, because you're right, this would have been a total mess if the Biden DOJ was in charge of this. But did you think it was odd that when the authorities released the text messages, there were no timestamps?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a little different. I mean, I don't know if that's because they were scrubbed, and that's part of their investigative tool that they didn't, they're trying to cue the public in on certain things, but they don't want us to know all in the weeds of it, maybe.
Yeah. Another thing that came out in those text messages, he said, the suspected killer said, and who knows if this is true or not, but the trans lover asked him, how long have you been planning this? And he said a little over a week, I think. Do you think that that's consistent with the crime that he committed? He would have had to know the layout of the school. He had to figure out an escape route. Certainly he didn't do it perfectly, but he did successfully assassinate Charlie Kirk. So do you think is that consistent with what we saw? I mean, just a week to plan this?
Well, I think probably yes. Now, here it could go one of two ways. What I was completely worried about last week on your show, which you said it for me, which I appreciated. I was worried about a bigger conspiracy and, a deep state, whether it's, another country, left-wing lunatic funded, our own people. Like, I'm really, really concerned. I was really concerned about it being a bigger problem. And it still could be. I don't think that's the case, though. I think this was just a young man that was radicalized and saw a crime of opportunity. It kind of gets back to, I preach all the time to my father, lock your car. People aren't going to go around smashing windows in the broad daylight to steal. They're going to flick door handles. Right. So sometimes it's just literally a crime of convenience. And, Murphy is an SOB, and he's always on the side of the bad guys. So I think this guy literally decided, I'm just going to pull this off. And
see what
unlike
happens,
Trump,
right?
Trump, we were millimeters away from this happening to Trump. This has happened twice this is unacceptable.
Yeah, totally. It totally is. As a Secret Service agent, you've worked in security, you're a professional in this industry. Have you dealt with radicalization in chat rooms? Are you familiar with these Discord chat rooms and 4chan and 8chan and all these chat rooms? I mean, it seems like there needs to be a microscope on these.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm familiar with Discord. I was always more of an operational guy. I just enjoyed being out doing the stuff like, the guys were doing with Charlie, boots on the ground is what I like to call it. Operationally working the protectee. That's what I enjoy doing. There are a lot of smart people, way smarter than me, in the Secret Service and the FBI and some other three-letter agencies that sit at keyboards all day and they monitor this stuff. Trust me, every single thing's being monitored. I mean, we all know this thing's being monitored, right? So if you have an Alexa or whatever, that thing's being monitored. So you can better believe that your keystrokes are too. So these people, it's kind of like, people making comments on your Instagram page or the chat. Everybody's a keyboard warrior. Everybody feels safe from their home. I catch all kinds of flack on my Instagram page sometimes, but they don't realize they're being monitored. Just like I loved your segment with Jimmy Kimmel. I was laughing myself to death over here watching that segment. Words matter, and the consequences are a real thing. And I was talking to a buddy. I did a podcast this week with a friend of mine, and he said something that really resonated with me. He told his wife, he said, I'm tired of people saying, I want them to be held accountable. He goes, I want people to be punished. And that's what we're starting to see. We're starting to see, I think we're starting to see a turn back towards some normalcy, like it's almost like 1985 again, like things were sort of normal back then. And I think that people have to be aware that, yeah, you can say whatever you want. I can go out and rob a bank if I want to, but I can also go to jail.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Scott, thank you so much for being here. I love our segments. I very much appreciate your insight, especially when it comes to this, because I'm not an expert. We're all reading these headlines and trying to come up with conclusions. And people know on this show, I love to dive into the conspiracies, but with something of this gravity, it's not sometimes appropriate to do that. And we're going through the facts here, so I appreciate that, and I always appreciate our chat, so thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, everyone. Tactical Detail, Scott Bryson. He's former Secret Service agent, Silverlock contributor. You know him, you love him, and his podcast is Beyond the Service. So you can catch that on YouTube. Go over and follow him. He's Scott Bryson BTS on social media, so if you want more of that, you can find more of that. Of course, you can follow me on social media as well, at Hayley Karania on Instagram, TikTok, Truth Social, X, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow for an extra long scrolling time since we didn't get to it. Bye.